What is going on, Jet fans? My name is Matt O'Leary. I am back with another video, and today I'll be breaking down the Denver Broncos against the New York Jets in Week 5 of the 2023 NFL season. I'm excited to get into this one as it's the 1-3 Jets against the 1-3 Denver Broncos. We will first go through where these team ranks, where they rank on offense and defense, and get into the biggest storylines. And how do you not start with the Denver Broncos, who are 10th on offense and 32nd on defense? Defense stinks. Jets, by the way, 25th on offense, 14th on defense. A little room for improvement there on both sides of the football for the New York Jets. But I think this is the week that we could finally see a dominant performance on both the offensive and defensive side of the football, and I'll tell you why. Shawn Payton decided to make this game personal in the offseason. The Jets, and myself included, as a Jet fan, I'll be honest, I was 3 years old in 98. I don't have that same attachment to the 1998 Jets as other fans do. Older fans hate the Denver Broncos for that, and because Elway beat up on him before that. I get it. I totally get that. I respect that. I'm not denying that it didn't happen. I just did not have that physical attachment to hating the Broncos because in the 2000s and 2010s, they didn't really match up in the playoffs. They weren't really they weren't a hateable team. It was like that team that they would go to seemingly now every single year. And for whatever reason, they struggled to play in Mile High, whatever. Now I hate the Denver Broncos. I have never hated a team that is not a rival more than the Denver Broncos. And it's all because Shawn Payton opened his mouth for no reason going after Nathaniel Hackett for his tenure in Denver. We know it stunk. He didn't even make it through the first season. He was a really, really bad head coach. But the way he threw Hackett, you don't do that. That is not what happens around the league, and it's a very disrespectful thing to do. And he called out the Jets, too, talking about, they had a Hard Knocks, and they get the headlines in the offseason, and we always see those teams disappoint. And it's why? There's no reason for him to give the Jets that extra motivation. And we saw how Aaron Rodgers responded. He said, "Keep my coach's name out of your mouth." And this is going to be a very motivated New York Jets team. I hope anyway, because the fans, I know I am motivated for this one. I want to beat the bricks off the Denver Broncos. I don't want to just win and be like, oh, they won 17-14. Awesome. Good. They got to win. And they're back in. No, I want to embarrass them because Shawn Payton tried to embarrass the Jets. He tried to embarrass their offensive coordinator. And if this team has any backbone, they won't stand for that. And let's be honest, it's not like it's a great Denver Broncos team. The biggest thing, though, before we get into some of that, just how bad the Broncos are on the defensive side of the football, is what version of Zach Wilson are you going to get? He played his best game as a pro against the Kansas City Chiefs, went for 245, 2 touchdowns, no picks, and a really nice performance, completed over 70% of his passes. To me, there was no question that was his best game as a pro. Is that his new norm, or are we going to see a regression back to where he was, where he's throwing for $150, completing 50% of his passes, and looks skittish in the pocket? What version of Zach Wilson are you going to get? Because, last year in Denver, not the same defense, and actually very, very good defense, he struggled. He didn't play the best game, but they had a long Bree Hall run. The defense was epic, and they won the game. It was a low-scoring game. I believe it was 16-9, something around like that. It was a low-scoring game that they won. And they lost, the AVT and Bree Hall in the game. It was just that part of it stunk, but they came away with the win. You're like, okay, that's fine. This time, you could expect a little bit more from Zach Wilson, or at least you should see a little bit more. You saw Justin Fields absolutely go off for 4 touchdowns and over 300 passing yards. We've never seen Justin Fields do that in the NFL from a passing perspective. Jimmy G had a good game in week 1. Sam Howell went off and threw for 299 in Denver in week 2. And we all know what Tua and the Dolphins did to them in week 3, putting up a 70 spot. So really no excuse for the offense and for Zach Wilson. They should see good performances from both guys this week. I just mentioned it, but this is where we saw Bree Hall and AVT go down for the season on the same field, which is really, really tough to see. Those were the 2 most important guys on the Jets offense last year, and they lost them both, and the season began to go off the rails after that. But where Bree Hall comes in is he's been ripping off carries. He had a nice long run against the Kansas City Chiefs. And the training wheels are coming off. Robert Saleh said in his press conference earlier this week that they are no longer limiting Bree Hall. The pitch count is away. That he is going at full force, as it should be by this point. He is showing that he deserves the rock a little bit more. I believe he had 6 carries against the Kansas City Chiefs. That's something that has to go up. I would imagine it does. I think we see double-digit carries from Bree Hall. But for both those guys to return to the field where their season came to an end in 2022 just adds an extra layer of motivation. Like, take out the Nathaniel Hackett, Shawn Payton beef for a second. Add in, oh, by the way, AVT, your season ended here last year. And oh, Bree Hall, your season ended here last year. That would be a nice time for a breakout Bree Hall game. Let's talk about that Denver Broncos defense, which is off to a historically bad start. In the DVOA era, no team has gotten off to a worse start on defense than the Denver Broncos. As I mentioned, 70 to Miami, which is a joke. 35 to Sam Howell and the Commanders, not good. 28 to Justin Fields and the Bears. Like, they are bleeding points, and this is a really good opportunity. And it's not just the passing attack. We've seen, as I mentioned, Jimmy G, Sam Howell, Tua, Justin Fields, all those guys. Heck, even Mike White coming in and putting up monster numbers. The running backs have put up tons of points and tons of yards. This is where their defense ranks. They are 31st in the league in passing yards allowed, 32nd in passing touchdowns allowed, 32nd in rush yards allowed, and 29th in rush touchdowns allowed. You want to run the ball? Okay. You're going to be able to run the ball. You want to pass the ball? Okay, you're going to be able to pass the ball. And for Nathaniel Hackett, as I mentioned at the top, which is the biggest storyline from this game, whether he wants to admit it or Salah wants to admit it or not, go in your bag. All tricks, bring it out. Whatever you want to do. Run up the score. I don't care. This is your time to get revenge. This is your time to get revenge. And last thing before we get into my stats and final predictions here, we have to talk about some positive, which is the Denver Broncos offense and Russell Wilson have significantly improved. As I mentioned, top 10 scoring offense right now. Russell Wilson has a 106.7 rating, 253.5 yards per game so far, 9 touchdowns to 2 interceptions, a significant bump forward from where he was last year. He was not very good in Denver last year with Nathaniel Hackett or whatever, but the offense is clicking a little bit more right now, and that is something to watch for in this game as he has played better. He has put up points, and Denver in general has put up points here. So it's not going to be a complete walk in the park because it's like, hey, it's the rust from last year and an awful defense. No, their defense stinks, and I have high expectations for this game, but the defense has to show up. They can't dig themselves into, an early hole. They got to be able to show up. So let's get into my stat predictions. We'll do my picks. We start with Zach Wilson, who, again, as I hinted at or talked about at the beginning, what kind of Zach Wilson game are you going to get? I am going to say he takes that career game and has another better game because, again, that defense absolutely stinks. I'll go 22 of 34, 64.7 completion percentage, 272 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks, 118.8 rating. Does that mean Zach's back forever? I don't know if I'm ready to go there, but can he take advantage and should he take advantage against a putrid Denver defense? Yes, and he'll get us excited going into the game against the Philadelphia Eagles. As for Bree Hall, give me 14 carries, 92 yards, and a touchdown. He gets in the end zone on the field where he had his season come to an end. And Sauce Gardner gets his first interception of the season, which is much needed. As for my picks, I'll do my picks against the spread, as I always do. By the way, I've been terrible picking the Jets against the spread. I'm 1-3 picking in these ones for, on these videos and picking the Jets. But wanted to point out, not all bad. 38-26 against the spread. That's a pretty good start through 4 weeks. I will take that. But I am going to take the Jets +2. I think not only do they cover, I think they win the game, and I think they win this game handedly on both and get a dominant effort on both sides of the football. Because again, you have the motivation on the offensive side. Zach Wilson took a nice step last week. Nathaniel Hackett has to go out there and prove it. And this Denver Broncos defense, I cannot emphasize this enough. They have gotten off to a horrific start. Give me a 30-10 New York Jets win. A dominant win gets the Jets to 2-3, heading home to play the Philadelphia Eagles before you go into your bye week. As for Casey, let's see who Casey likes in this game. She is 2-2, and she picked the Jets last week. Let's see who she likes. Casey is also on the Jets. So both Matt and myself, I almost said both Matt and Casey, but I'm Matt. Both me and Casey, both Casey and I are on the New York Jets in Week 5 against the Denver Broncos. I want to hear from you. What are your expectations for this game? Let me know in the comments down below. Before you go, subscribe, leave a like, share with a friend. I'll catch you next time.